In this blog, we're looking at reference geometry. In particular, we're going to look at planes, axes and coordinate systems. To start off, we're going to look at planes. Planes are often used when using a loft feature, as you can do an offset from a surface, and you can have your two different sketches loft in between. They're also really quite useful for a mid-plane, when you want to do a mirror and keep things symmetrical. I'm just going to show you the tool, how to use it, and a couple of the examples. So how do you create a plane? First, you go to your Feature tab and go across to Reference Geometry. Use the drop-down and select Planes. Planes are defined by either 1, 2 or 3 references. You can define a plane simply by selecting one face. You can see at the top the message says Fully Defined. This is basically just offsetting it by a certain distance. You could do multiple faces, edges, points, axes. All these reference geometry can be used to help define your plane. For example, if we wanted to create a plane that was tangent to this circular face, but maybe perpendicular to this face, all we have to do is select these two faces and you can see it does it for us. You can even specify an angle if you so wished. One of my favourites is if using a mid-plane, or what I call a mid-plane. If you have two parallel faces, like these two here, it creates a plane perfectly in the middle for us. Planes are a feature. You can then expand these if you so wish to make them clearer. And what I'm going to use this plane to mirror about. So if I create a quick sketch on here, something very simple like a circular hole, and dimension that up so it's fully constrained. Okay, so 0.75 from there, 0.75 from there as well. I want to use a simple feature and cut through wall. And I want to mirror it about this plane. So I click our mirror tool underneath features, click our plane that we've just created. Feature to mirror is our hole. You may say, what's so special about that? Well, if we decide to change how wide our project is, so from 4 to 6, it rebuilds. Notice how the plane has stayed in the centre and our two holes are symmetrical. So that's one advantage of planes, it keeps the updates. Another common use of planes is if we look at a quick sketch. This is a simple 3D sketch. However, I want to, maybe this is a piece of piping or wiring or something like that, and I want a circular profile that follows all this. I don't have a plane, or my default planes aren't in suitable areas to create a sketch on, so I want to create my own. So I go to Features, Reference Geometry and Plane. My first reference is going to be a line, second reference is going to be a point, and it creates a perpendicular plane to that line at that point. You can then click OK. You can create a sketch on that, any profile you want. So we can dimension that up, so it might be 5 mm. And we're going to locate that on that point. You can see it's fully defined and that's what we're always after. We're going to go to Features and use a swept emboss / base. That is our profile. Our 3D sketch is our path. If we do that and we look out, you can see it's created a nice tube for us there, pipework. The next thing I'm going to look at is axes. So I've got another model here, just to show it. Basically I've got this slot. I want to do a circular pattern around the centre of this part 6 times. To do this, you'd normally select a cylindrical face or a temporary axis. Well, I've got no temporary axis I can use, so I need to create my own. So underneath Features, Reference Geometry, you have Axis. What I've done is made sure that I've modelled my component so it's in the middle, so where my front plane and right plane intersect is perfectly in the middle. All I'm going to do is go to Features, Reference Geometry, Axes. And for this instance, we're going to use two planes, so our front and our right. Where those two intersect, it creates an axis. You can drag this out just as you can do with planes. I can then select the feature circular pattern. For our axis, we can choose the one we've created. For our feature, we can select our slot. We can change the number of instances. I'm going to leave it at 6 and click OK. And you can see it's managed to create our circular pattern. We're going to have a quick look at coordinate systems. Okay. Although our plane or our origin is in the middle, and it is good for this job, however, you may want to create your own for exporting purposes. So, how do you create your own? Well, if you go to your reference geometry, you've got a coordinate system. It's after an origin point, so where your x, y and z would intersect. So I may choose this corner here, for example. You can see you've got your x, y and z coming off it. You can fill these boxes in appropriately, so you might say, actually, I don't want my y to be going up, I want it to follow that edge. You can reverse that direction and make it any way you want. You might want your x to follow this edge. As I say, you can use the reverse direction to flip it around. You can then click OK, and it creates a coordinate system. Once again, it creates it as a feature in your feature tree. This can be quite useful when you are deciding to save it as a step file, for example, as you have an option to output coordinate system instead of using the default one. You could use your own custom one you've created. Therefore, when it gets imported in another CAD package or back into SolidWorks at client end, the coordinate system is in that corner specified by the edges you've selected.